Do any of y'all listen to music at all? Raise your hands. Okay, all right, it's everybody. All right, I'm gonna show some fossils to the teenagers, and for some of us, I'm gonna show you some things you want to add to your collection. How many of y'all remember when music came on these? Anybody? Yeah. How many of y'all still have some? Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna admit it. My father-in-law still won't get rid of his collection. Okay, now that gave way to what? What replaced records? Huh? 8-tracks. I actually found one today at a thrift store. Willie Nelson. Yeah. He's still going strong. He lived in Evergreen for a while, right? Till the IRS took his house or something. I read about it on the internet today. Okay, so Willie Nelson on 8-track, and then that gave way to what? Cassettes. That was when I entered into the music world. I'm still hanging on to mine in case they make a comeback. Then what happened? CDs. Oh, I don't know how to bridge the gap between this and the digital age. I have them in my garage. I don't know what I should do with them. And then they started fading out. And now what do we have? Anyone? Okay, what is this? It's an iPod. Now this isn't where it stopped, because most of you in here have what? A smartphone. So it's moved from just one of these to an iPhone. Now there was a time when every single person that invented that thought that's where it's going to stop. The records, that's where it's going to stop. The 8-tracks, thank God that is not where it stopped. And so every single thing that you, there's just no storage for that. And so what happens is, but it all reached a place where somebody else in a cubicle or an office or somewhere said, I think we can do better than this. Driven people have a tendency to do that. And through that, there's a ton of stuff. You can look, Google. I don't know if y'all have that here or not. Google's an internet thing you can search on. You can find the things that almost came. Mini discs. Have you ever heard of those? They almost beat the CDs out. They were smaller. They came in a case. I had a friend who was from Germany. They were huge in Germany. And then it didn't work out. So he has a big collection of them. Mini cassettes. Remember those? They weren't just for, secretly taping somebody. They were going to be the next big thing. And all along the way, failure was part of the process of learning this, because people sat in a room and said, I think we can do better. And they tried stuff. I want to talk just briefly tonight about the lost art of failing forward. And to talk about that, I want to give you some examples of things we have today that came from failures. The slinky. Does anybody know where that came from? Does anybody know how to fix them when they get crooked? Because my kids keep doing this. And it's frustrating. A guy was building a meter for a battleship so it could monitor the power. And one of the very sensitive springs, he bumped, and it fell onto a book and a stack of shelves and down. And he thought, I'm going to be a millionaire. He packaged that spring, and they sell them all over the place. Another guy was working on a radar, and it was a new vacuum tube. And he turned it on, and his belt buckle sparked, and it melted a candy bar in his pocket, which you shouldn't carry candy bars in your pocket. But it instantly melted it. He thought, interesting. He went and got popcorn, put it in there, and it popped. What is that? That's where we get the microwave. Anybody here use Post-it notes? 3M makes $17 billion a year, most of it from Post-it notes. Because the guy who invented that was actually trying to make super glue that would never come off. And he made the worst kind of glue on earth that won't even get paper to rip. He thought it was a cute thing, filed it away, told a colleague. That colleague later on was in a choir at a church, and his paper the little marks in the choir book kept falling out. He thought, hey, I'm going to use some of my friends' failed glue to keep these things in the book, and that's where Post-it notes come from. Now, that came from a failure. 3M embraces that. In fact, one of the things they say is, we will give $1 billion a year to just try stuff. They say failure is part of our culture. I've spent my life studying driven people. One of my favorites is Mother Teresa. Doesn't seem like a driven person. But when she wanted to go and start caring for the poor in India, the church told her no. She had to persist over and over. Finally, she told them, I'm not asking you for funding. I'm not asking you for anything. Just let me go. So they did, with no funding. She got to live on the streets with these people. She tried to feed them with no funding and find health care with no funding. And when the church wouldn't help her, she went past a Hindu temple that was abandoned and saw that it was empty. And she went to the city and she asked them for that temple. And the Indian officials saw that she was trying to do something good, so they gave it to her. So her whole ministry started in a Hindu temple. And she said, at the end of the day, it's about caring for the needs of other people. I started doing a church with 13 of my friends, and we didn't want to do a church the normal way where you just beg for money and build a building. And so we decided we would fund ourselves. That's not true. They told me I can't talk about religion here, so I don't get taken offering up, but But what we wanted to do was something different. I wanted to be able to help our community, and I want to be able to help real needs instead of like, oh, that's really sad, pat you on the head. And so we realized to do that, we were going to need money. So right now, me and my friends own 9 businesses. We decided that within 5 years, we needed to be making $1 million from those businesses a year. We own a publishing company. We started a diner. We started a furniture company, just several things. And everything we did, we failed at. When we started the diner, we rented a place. We got kitchen equipment. And then we went to Sam's and bought a bunch of stuff. We got there. We put an open sign up. And then people came in and we were like, here's, French fried Pez or Pop-Tarts. We realized nobody knew how to cook. Look, driven people have a tendency to just go, let's just try this and we'll see what happens. And so the first week we were like, hey, everything's free. And the people were like, well, that's good because this is kind of offensive food. And I said, well, this is awful. But my friends are just like me. We just keep going. And so we shut it down for a week, and we watched a show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. You ever watch that? Yeah, and so we just started going, well, I would eat that. What did they do? Back it up. We wrote it down. We took good ideas. Driven people don't try to recreate the wheel. They just find something that works. They just keep moving forward. We started needing to build furniture when a fire would happen or something would happen in our community. We wanted to meet needs, or we tried to revamp our diner. Furniture is very expensive. And we were driving around, and we were behind a warehouse. I don't know how we ended up getting lost down in the city. And one of the guys, a graduate from here, he was actually the captain of your breakdance team. Apparently y'all had one. Yay, evergreen. He said, too bad we can't make furniture out of pallets. And we were like, huh. Huh is what you hear from driven people. Huh says, maybe we could do something with that. So we got on the internet. Apparently there's this whole thing that people do that. So we started a company called Repurposed. And we make tables out of it. We do very well with this now. You can make porch swings and chairs. And it's very cheap because when you show up at businesses, they're like, please take them all. Because this is trash to them. We've done other things that have just taken off. When we first tried to do publishing, it was, I didn't know how to spell correctly. And I published a book. I got it published. And that's when I was going to be rich. Because, if you're an author, it's a lot of money. And apparently, no. And I sold thousands of books, and they sent me my check, and I was like, so what happened? And one of our guys said, I think we can do this and make more money if we just do this ourselves. And so we went through that process. Now, our church has been going for about 4 years. We needed to be hitting $1 million in 5 years every year. We're on track this year, that's going to be closing out our 5th year, to be a 2.1 million we bring in from our businesses. And every single thing we do, we fail. We try stuff and we fail. We try foods and we fail. We try writing stuff and it doesn't work. We try publishing books that some of them do good, Some of them don't do good. But the idea behind failing is it's kind of the hallmark of becoming a great entrepreneur. And I think we're losing that in our society. We're teaching a lot more now to be safe, to do things the right way. I got that from my stepdad. I remember when I told him what I wanted to do. I said, I want to do church stuff, but I also want to run businesses. And he told me I needed to learn welding because apparently that's the fallback position, you just learn welding and then you'll be okay. And in everything you do, any innovative thing, you're gonna have to risk some stuff. You're gonna have to fall and skin your knees. You're gonna have to do things the wrong way and come out of it a better person. Because failure to driven people is just an education. It's a learning process. There's a lady that I always think of about this. Maybe you guys have never heard of her. My bet is you'll never forget her. Her name was Irina Sindler. And she lived during World War II in Warsaw, Poland. And she saw what the Nazis were doing in the ghettos. And her friends started figuring out that they were shipping these people away to die. And she was very concerned that so many children were going. She knew she couldn't really get the adults out, but she said, we should really try to let these people know what's going on and get the babies out. So she learned how to become a sanitation worker. The Nazis were not really pumped that when the sanitation would go bad and disease would spread because it could affect them too. And so they had sanitation people that were certified and trained that would go in and fix the plumbing problems. And Irina and her friends created a toolbox that was just big enough to slide a baby in. And they would take babies out. She trained her dog to hate the German officer uniform. So when she would get near them at the gates coming in and out, they would bark like crazy. The Germans hated the dog, but it would cover the baby's cry. And they started figuring out ways to get bigger and a little bit more advanced kids out. She's responsible for getting out 2,500 kids. She buried their names in little jars because they had to change their names to put them in other families, and they put them in her friend's garden. Well, the Nazis found out about this, and towards the end of the war, they caught her. They tortured her for days. They broke her legs and her feet, and they sentenced her to be executed because she wouldn't tell them where those jars were buried so they could hunt those kids down. She wouldn't tell them who her co-conspirators were. And she talks about it later on, that on the way to being executed, one of her friends, who probably would be dead had she given her up, bribed the guard for her, because they thought she was going to die anyway, and took her away. She was able to survive the rest of the war because they thought she was dead because her death certificate had read that she had been executed. And she talked about how all the different problems they had, and every single time they overcame it. And her words are, we had a drive to fix things. We had a drive to save more kids. And I guess what I would like to say is that there's a lot of people with drive in the world. It's a learned skill, I think, also for a lot of people. And if you're going to have drive and you're going to do something great, make sure you add in a little bit for the world. Use your drive to change things. Use the internal drive you have to make the world a better place, along with making your life a better place. I listen a lot of times to people say, I can't change the whole world, and I feel the same way, but I can change my world. Irina Sindler did that. She actually lost the Nobel Peace Prize to Al Gore for the global warming thing. But I think back, well, look, I'm not political at all. I think that you need to go back and you should read, like when everybody gets nominated, we always hear about the winner. You should read some of the remarkable people who don't win it, who probably should, or at least it was great that they were nominated. And every single one of them who did anything great with their life to bring peace in, they had a motivation. They had an internal drive to do good with the world. That's all.